So 12 years ago, 12 years and 2 days ago, I should say, Sergei Magnitsky was murdered in a Russian prison after spending 358 days in detention, and after the authorities tried to torture him into retracting his testimony about police corruption and the theft of $230 million. And I've been on a mission since his murder to get justice for him. And as James said, one of the key tools that we ended up coming up with was the Magnitsky Act. And the idea was, if we could freeze the assets and ban the travel, ban the visas of the people who killed Sergei and kill other people like that, it won't be true justice, but it'd be a lot better than total impunity. And I started on this project in 2010, and nobody thought it would ever succeed. Everybody thought that the Russian government was so powerful and that no individual could change a situation like this. And because of the power of Sergei's story, it overcame the cynicism of politics, and the United States passed the first Magnitsky Act in 2012. Russian President Vladimir Putin got so upset he made it his single largest foreign policy priority to repeal the Magnitsky Act, and he banned the adoption of Russian orphans in retaliation. And the senators who passed the Magnitsky Act said, well, if Putin got so mad, maybe there's other dictators that deserve this too. And that became the genesis of the Global Magnitsky Act, which passed in 2016, which sanctions bad guys from around the world. After that, we went to Canada, the UK, the European Union, and we're now in a situation where there are 33 countries that have Magnitsky Acts. And in order to do this, I can't do it by myself. I always have to find friends, allies, collaborators around the world. And there are many people here tonight who are those friends, allies, and collaborators. But tonight, I want to focus my praise and attention on one specific friend, ally, and collaborator, and that's Senator Kimberley Kitching from Australia. Senator Kitching is someone who I met on Zoom. I was supposed to, there was never an opportunity to go to Australia to visit, and we met on Zoom, and I actually think that Zoom is about, I don't know, like 40% as effective as meeting in real life, but somehow Kimberley was so enthralled by this idea that it didn't take any great persuasion on my part in order to get her activated. And Australia is a country that's really completely on the other side of the world, and for years I've been trying to get things going, and I couldn't get any traction at all. And the moment I met Kimberley on Zoom, everything started to happen. And over the course of lockdown, she organized a parliamentary inquiry into the Magnitsky Act. She got all sorts of members of parliament, members of the Senate from Australia signed up to the Magnitsky Act. She got the parliamentary inquiry on a multi-party basis to recommend the Magnitsky Act to the government. And then finally, she got the government to agree to do a Magnitsky Act. And there's one small detail I want to correct, which is it hasn't yet passed, but I understand that it will pass in the next 2 weeks. And Australia will be the 34th country. Australia would be the 34th country in the world that has a Magnitsky Act. And my whole thing is to go and get the Magnitsky Act in all countries that bad guys want to keep their money in. And we're starting to run out of those countries where we almost have the whole world covered. And so it really is a great honor, a great pleasure to recognize Kimberley Kitching with the Magnitsky Award for 2021. Kimberley, please come up and accept your award.
Firstly, thank you, and it is an honour to be here in this room with every one of you. I'd like to thank Bill, not only for his generosity, not only for this award and for this awards ceremony, but also for all that he has done to make the world a better place, for understanding what the world could be and for understanding what the world should be. Also, he has shown himself to be a defender of all humanity through the deep care he has shown to Sergei Magnitsky and his memory. As he said this afternoon at the Henry Jackson Society, it means Sergei Magnitsky's death is not meaningless. As Bill knows, and I have witnessed a tight group of good people whom he has around him, it is not possible to do this alone, as you've just said, Bill. So I would like to acknowledge the amazing people I have met over the last few days, and I would like to acknowledge the following people. Michael Danby, my friend who is retired from Australian federal politics now, and who is known to some of you, and is a force of nature, and was the first person I spoke with about Magnitsky legislation after seeing Bill Browder being interviewed on the ABC in Australia. Most of Michael's family were murdered in the Holocaust, and he said to me once when he was being outspoken on an issue, and probably in trouble, knowing Michael, "How can someone like me not speak for the oppressed? If people like me don't fight, then who am I? What am I doing in Parliament?" I think these are very wise words and words I carry with me. I'd like to thank my own party for adopting support for Magnitsky legislation, and we've never given up on having this law. It's been delightful to find allies across the aisle and in the crossbench. I'd like to thank Marise Payne, the Australian Foreign Minister, who sent a reference on Magnitsky to the Joint Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade for it to inquire into Australia's need for Magnitsky legislation, and her office, especially her Chief of Staff, for all of their work. I'd like to thank my fellow Wolverines, and there is a story behind that name, but I would like to thank them, especially Andrew Hastie, who is now an Assistant Minister for Defence and the member for Canning, and my fellow Victorian Senator James Paterson. James and I wrote an opinion piece in the Australian newspaper together, and this has been a bipartisan effort ever since. I'd also like to acknowledge my IPAC co-chairs who are in the room. IPAC is the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, and there is no surprise there is overlap between IPAC and the people in this room for Magnitsky. I'd also like to acknowledge the very able Secretariat led by Luke de Pulford. All of these people, all of you in this room, you understand the need for Magnitsky legislation and why we cannot let the dregs of humanity, those who steal from their compatriots, who torture and murder, who delight in causing fear, who place their citizens in concentration camps, who enforce slavery and arbitrary detention, all of these people in the Australian Parliament whom I've mentioned, and all of the people in this room, understand why we as human beings who believe in the dignity of human beings cannot allow such evil to go on, unchallenged. And all of the people who understand why Magnitsky legislation is necessary understand why democracies must be supreme. President Kennedy said in his inaugural address that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. He was, of course, when he said these words, referring to the Soviet Union. Le plus ça change. I'm not saying that democracies are always right. After all, it was 2 years after that inaugural address, and it was from his jail cell in Birmingham, Alabama, that Martin Luther King Jr. wrote these words that should still ring in our ears, and they certainly ring in mine very often. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. But it is the democracies where there is sunlight and transparency, that have a rule of law, that respect the rights of minorities, that believe in free and fair elections, that believe in the freedom of the press, that believe in human rights. It is they that are the promised land for those who suffer at the mean and ugly and choking hands of authoritarian regimes. Democracies need to grow, not to contract. And for those of us in this room who do not hold out an appeasing hand to those who commit human rights abuses, who do not hold out a grasping hand to those who engage in large-scale corruption, to those who tell these evil people, no, we will not look away while you do wrong, but rather look them straight in the eye and say, we shall make pariahs of you all. For those in this room who choose to fight as Bill has chosen to fight, for those who will fight for justice and righteousness, you have made the only choice there is to make. I'm so grateful there are people like Bill Browder in the world, and that had me thinking. So I am going to nominate Bill for the Nobel Peace Prize. As a member of a National Assembly or a national parliament, I am able to do so. I am going to encourage, possibly hound, my fellow legislators to nominate Bill as well, and the people in this room who are eligible to nominate him as well. We'll have a campaign. This will bring more attention to Sergei Magnitsky and his death as well. It will mean, as Bill hopes, that his death is not meaningless. We'll start now. Thank you once again. It is an honour to be with every one of you in this room. Thank you.